Pinterest dropped their 2026 Pinterest Predicts report back in late 2025, and I wanted to see which one of these trends actually had legs before I started telling you to build around them. Turns out, most of them do. The ones we're covering today are still very much in motion and carrying well into 2027. Here's what makes Pinterest Predicts different from the Etsy report we just did a little while ago. This is forward-looking search data from hundreds of millions of users planning their next purchase. When Pinterest calls a trend, it tends to show up on Etsy 3 to 6 months later. We're right in that window right now. For each trend, I'm going to show you the data, validate real demand in Everbee, call out specific Printify products that fit, and give you my hot take, the left field angle that most sellers are completely going to miss. So let's get into it. First trend here is Vamp Romantic. Pinterest describes it as an after dark aesthetic. You got jet black nails, gothic hairstyles, what they call dark romance makeup, glossy hair glamour with a haunting edge. Millennials and Gen Z are driving this one hard. Here's the numbers from the report. Dark romantic makeup is up 160%. Gothic coffin nails are up 180%. Vampire beauty is up 90%. And Carmilla aesthetic is up 60%. And this lines up directly with what Etsy called gothic romance in their spring-summer 2026 report. When two of the biggest trend platforms are pointing at the same aesthetic at the same time, that is not a coincidence. That's a signal. Here's what's actually going on under the surface. There's a well-documented pattern in consumer behavior called subcultural mainstreaming. I mentioned it in the Etsy Trends one, where an aesthetic that lived on the fringes for years suddenly gets adopted by the mainstream without losing its edge. Gothic and dark romance aesthetics have existed in subcultures for decades. What's happening right now is that book talk and dark romance fiction have handed this aesthetic a massive new audience. People who never considered themselves goth, but are absolutely buying into the mood. That's a huge expansion of the buyer pool, and most POD sellers haven't caught up to it yet. Let me show you what this looks like in real demand. As I'm typing it, you can see it populating here. Dark romance sweatshirt, 342 searches. What you're looking for is listing age versus velocity. So the bookish niche is the engine driving a lot of this. Dark romance, reader, gothic book lover, the whole world. These aren't massive established shops either. A lot of these are relatively new listings, finding their audience pretty quickly. I'm also going to search gothic aesthetic tee. We've got 359 monthly sales, 2 months old. 101 monthly sales, 2 months old. 3 months old, 6 monthly sales, 3 months old, 20 monthly sales. Absolutely insane. The tool that I'm using is Everbee, and they've recently added these awesome little click buttons in here where I can sort by bestseller, popular now, and even hide the ads. So if I wanted to hide the ads, for example, now it hid 25 listings that were populated because they had ad spend. That's the only reason they were showing up in search results. Now I can hide them so I can only see the organic ones, not just listings that have people pumping as much money as they possibly can behind them. And then I can come over here and click on bestseller as well, which will also show up the popular nows here. So scrolling for a little bit more, we got 30 monthly sales on this at 6 months old, 33 monthly sales at 11 months old, 52 monthly sales, 9 months old, 143 monthly sales, only 4 months old. These things are flying off the shelves. 8 months old, 46 monthly sales, just this one listing. Imagine if you had a few listings like that in your shop, right? Now I'm looking up stained glass mug. Look at this, 126 monthly searches. And it's not necessarily about the volume of the searches, it's about the intent of the buyer. If 126 people are searching for this and you have a stained glass mug in your shop that gets 10% of that traffic, that's 12.5% of potential sales just on that one listing every single month. Stained glass mug here transcends the gothic genre. You got America here, 250 years. Everybody's using this now. 6 months old, 267 monthly sales. This is the bookish niche. Let's figure out some math here. I will say $16 because let's assume they're not having a sale the whole time. Maybe they are most of the time, so average price is probably $16. Almost $4,300 a month just on this one listing. It's 6 months old. Again, we can just go with popular now to see what's really hot right now. So we've got our winner over here. We've got 9 months old, 51 sales a month. This one's been around for a while. This octopus is so cool. Look at that. 1990, 29 sales. Let's say 30 at $20 at $600 a month just on this one listing, 5 months old. Your mug cost is probably half that. So you're after fees probably looking at $8 a mug, assuming you're charging $1 or $2 maybe extra for the shipping, right? And that's all after Etsy fees. So multiply the $8 profit times 30 is $240 a month profit just on this single mug. Now maybe you have a set of 4 or 5 aquatic creatures like that. Something a little more darker, piratey, really cool. Nana, 4 months old, 22 sales a month. Here's more dark gothic style stuff with the cats. The stained glass design trend is a direct visual expression of Vamp Romantic, and it's showing up across multiple product types. Look at these. You got it on a Tumblr now too. On Printify for this trend, and I want to be clear here, I'm not telling you to go build all of these. Pick 1 or 2 that align with what you're already doing or what your shop is already about. Spreading yourself across 6 product types at once is how you build a messy shop that confuses both buyers and the algorithm, especially in the beginning. That said, here's where the opportunity is. And of course, we'll do our popular now. And what do we got here? A Little Ray of Pitch Black. This thing is a bestseller already. 9 months old in 20 carts. 53 monthly sales, and this with the embroidery is definitely selling. This is exactly the understated dark aesthetic this buyer wants. Elevated, but not costumey. Pick your own lane here. Don't try to do all 5. Everyone covering this trend is going straight to apparel. Black tee, dark graphic, done. Here's what they're missing. The Vamp Romantic buyer is not a teenager buying a Halloween shirt. This is a 25 to 38-year-old who reads dark romance novels, who has an aesthetic home, who spends real money on things that would match her vibe year-round. That's a completely different customer with a completely different basket size. All right, trend 2 is called opera aesthetic. Pinterest describes it as dramatic drapery. Try to say that 3 times fast. Red roses, string quartets, vintage theater brought into everyday celebrations. Millennials and Gen Z bring the vintage theater aesthetic to every one of their gatherings. Cue the curtain. Every detail will be dialed to the nines. We got Midnight Masquerade up 95%. Opera Theater up 35%, and Wedding Ceiling Drapery up 40%. There's no limit to how much people will spend on their weddings. We talked about that in that video over here too. This one sits right at the intersection of the celebration niche and the dark aesthetic, which means it overlaps with Vamp Romantic, but with a different buyer. Less book talk and more I throw dinner parties and I take them seriously. What's driving this is something called theatrical self-presentation. It's the idea that people increasingly want their real lives to feel like a curated experience rather than just something that happens to them. We saw this explode post-pandemic when people started over-investing in celebrations as a reaction to years of having nothing to celebrate. We just saw it here with prom that happened, and every prom couple had their sort of entry theme. I'm not even kidding. This is high school, like 17 years old. And friends of ours here, they hired a band and dancers for their kids to come down the main road and enter into the area where they were doing all their entranceways on the red carpet. Absolutely insane. In that sense, these aesthetic buyers aren't buying a product. They're buying a prop for the life that they're staging. That's a powerful purchase motivator, and that's why this category commands premium pricing. In Etsy here, we're going to search Masquerade Party Decor. Look at this, 67 monthly searches. Seems like not a lot, but again, these are underserved. Custom banner, 2 lines, 10 months old, 33 monthly sales. Let's go with bestsellers, 12 monthly sales, dark bows, 2 months old. We've got $24 here. It's in 14 carts for this bestseller mask. 8 months old, selling at 46 times a month. You got dramatic wedding dress here. Let's try sign. Cool looking vintage type. 3 months old, 15 monthly sales at $40 a pop. Dramatic wedding signs here. 12 months old. This is holy at $45, $46 here. 557 sales a month. 25 people have bought this in the last 24 hours. That's $25K a month in revenue on these welcome signs. It's a fabric linen, so it's probably not very expensive to source and print. What you're looking for here is the celebration and event niche crossover. This is a buyer who is spending for a specific occasion, which means urgency is built in, and they're not price shopping the way a casual buyer is shopping for wall art. You got vintage theater wall art here. You're going to find some listings, but the category is genuinely thin for POD, which is exactly the kind of gap worth paying attention to. There's just not a lot here. On Printify for opera aesthetic, again, pick 1 or 2, not all of these. Matte vertical posters and canvas prints, dramatic theater-inspired wall art, vintage opera poster style. This is the most direct product match, and it has a real demand with thin competition. Think dark florals and damask patterns. This is the kind of thing that can add accent to a wall without the commitment that is the entire wall being painted a really rich color or super dark, or the crazy two-tone velvety wallpapers that we see out there, right? This is something you can put on a canvas and have it look instantly like it fits the part. Or maybe a 3 set of something like this that gives such a pop of color on a dark navy or black wall. The opera aesthetic buyer carries things intentionally here. The vintage theater aesthetic on a journal cover is a beautiful product for this buyer too. They're the type to write things down, take notes, and plan out their, shopping trip for the weekend. And then we got greeting cards. There's opera and masquerade themed cards for the celebrations, right? These are the big parties they want to have. They're going to need invitations. The celebration niche on Etsy is absolutely enormous, and their aesthetic is barely represented in it. And a bit of a repeat here, but woven tapestries again. A dramatic vintage theater or masquerade motif as a tapestry on a wall is a statement piece that this buyer will absolutely spend exorbitant amounts of money for. Most people are going to look at the opera aesthetic and think, okay, Halloween adjacent, maybe some masquerade party stuff. That's the surface read, and it's not wrong, but it's also where everyone else is going to land. Everyone's going to throw orange something in there. Everyone's going to throw bats or a little cute ghost. Here's the left field angle. The celebration stationery and event niche. Masquerade party invitations, dramatic dinner party menus, vintage opera themed place cards. Digital downloads in this aesthetic are almost non-existent too right now, and the search volume is there. If you do digital products, this is one of the cleanest gaps I've seen in a while. And if you do physical products, a greeting card line built around this aesthetic. Birthdays, anniversaries, dinner party invitations. This is a category with almost no POD competition and a buyer who will absolutely pay $6 to $8 for a card that matches their vibe. All right, trend 3 is Glitchy Glam. All of these are hard for me to say for some reason. Pinterest describes it as maximalist 80s luxury. You got tailored suits with sculpted shoulders, chunky gold jewelry, funnel necks, which I guess is kind of like a turtleneck. I don't even know. Bold excess. Gen Z and millennials are driving these ones, and the numbers are serious. There's some good numbers here. You've got makeup up over 100%, weird makeup looks 115%, nails with different colors 125%, asymmetrical lob, whatever that is, avant-garde makeup, editorial up 270%, but I did some extra digging for you. And the numbers here are 80s luxury is up 225%, baggy suits are up 90%, maximalist accessories are up 105%, chunky belts are up 65%, and gold cuffs are up 50%. The main point here is the big number, and that's 225% on 80s luxury. That's a huge number, and this connects to something we've been watching build for a couple of years now, and that is the cyclical return of maximalism after a really long run of clean, minimalist everything. The pendulum has swung the other way. Look at this. Maximalist decor, 2,600 searches every single month. Almost 2,800 for maximalist wall art, wall home decor, all above and in the 2 to almost 3,000s. These are busy. These are 80s throwback. These are fun themes. Again, a goldmine if you're selling digital download bundles. And the psychology here, there's a concept in trend forecasting called aesthetic fatigue. That's when a dominant visual style has been around long enough that people start rejecting it. Not because it's bad, it's because it's everywhere. It's no longer in that subculture kind of zone. Minimalism has become the default aesthetic across fashion, home decor, and design for the better part of a decade. Clean lines, neutral palettes, less is more. People are genuinely tired of it. Glitchy glam is the direct reaction of that. More is more, louder is better, and if it doesn't make a statement, it's not doing its job. For POD sellers, this means bold, maximalist, high contrast designs that are not just acceptable right now, they're actively what the buyer is seeking out. Etsy or an Everbee, you can search 80s aesthetic sweatshirt, maximalist tote, retro glam tee. What you're going to find is that the retro and 80s design space on Etsy is active, but the specifically maximalist high glam end of it is underserved. There's a difference between a generic 80s nostalgia design and something that actually captures this elevated, dramatic decadent energy. The listings doing well here tend to have a strong visual identity, bold typography, gold accents, and high contrast. A reminder here to look at listing age versus sale velocity, and you will see this category moving. Also search glam wall art and maximalist print. The home decor angle for this trend is genuinely underserved. I promise you that. I've been telling people to go after home decor forever. Look at this stuff. And this is what I'm talking about when I say sets. Look how cool these look together. It's a year old, 400 sales, and in 20 carts right now. Better late than ugly, right? On Printify for Glitchy Glam. Wow, why can't I say that? Pick your lane. You got all over print hoodies, shirts. This is a trend where all over print makes all the most sense of anything we covered today. Maximalist design language needs canvas. It needs to be seen. It needs to be loud and big. A chest logo on a plain tee doesn't do this aesthetic justice at all. All over print does. Of course, you got the comfort colors in bold colors now. You got coral and mustard red. This trend lives in saturated color, not neutrals. Be loud. Canvas prints, matte posters, no brainer. Glam wall art, 80s luxury inspired prints, chrome and that aesthetic where this kind of thing where my mom still has this like chocolate brown wall unit at home in the basement that has this gold trim plastic on it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That is the maximalist aesthetic here. The everyday exhibits trend from the Etsy report backs this up entirely. Wall art is a growing category, and this aesthetic has almost no POD representation. Embroidered hats, a chunky bold embroidered design on a structured hat is very on brand for this aesthetic too. Maximalist typography, gold thread if available. If you use Printful through Printify, they actually have a system where they dye the thread as it's being embroidered, which is really, really cool. So you can, get a lot of really interesting colors. I've got a video that I'll link to up here on that one too. Of course, hardcover journals are super easy sell on this. Maximalist gold accented journal cover, for the buyer who wants every object in their life to have some kind of personality. So here's where I think most POD sellers are going to get this wrong. They're going to see 80s and immediately go retro nostalgia. Cassette tapes, neon grids, synth wave. That stuff already exists on Etsy by the thousands. That's not glitchy glam. The left field angle here is of the luxury and maximalism crossover with specific identity niches. Think about who this buyer actually is. Someone who wants to be seen, who rejects being boring, who takes their personal aesthetic seriously, loud and proud. Now cross that with a specific niche. You've got a maximalist design for a teacher who refuses to be invisible. A bold rose gold or gold accented tee for a woman turning 40 who is done being understated. A high glam bachelorette collection that isn't the same blush pink design that everyone else is selling. The glitchy glam aesthetic applied to a specific person's identity is where the real money is. And almost nobody's doing it yet. That's the Dark Money episode. 3 trends that are already in motion and carrying well into 2027 and massively underserved in the POD space right now. To recap, you got Vamp romantic, opera aesthetic, glitchy glam. 3 different buyers, 3 different price points, but the same core insight. Dramatic, bold, unapologetic is where a huge chunk of buyer attention is sitting right now, and most POD sellers are still making pastels. Pick one, build a cohesive collection around it, and don't try to chase all 3 at once. Ideally, pick one that you can, mix and match with your niche. If you want to validate any of these before you start building, grab Everbee through my link in the description. Free trial, big discount on the annual plan, and a stack of bonuses. I'll leave it in the top comment too. And if you're not on Printify Premium yet, you should be. The base discounts alone will change your margins. So try it free for 30 days using my code JaysWayPrintify. Link's also down there. Episode 2 is a nostalgia goldmine. We're talking pen pals, poet core, and Wilderkind. Drop a comment and tell me which one of these trends you're gonna go after first. I read everything here, so I'm truly stoked to see what you guys are up to. You asked for it, so we're gonna keep going like this. See you in the next one.